Mamas, Jessica here, creator of Yoga Nidra, where I want to help you create healthy habits, manage everyday stress, and live an empowered life. Hey, welcome back to another video. And the subject of today's video is how to have more energy, part 2. And if you're interested in part 1, I'm going to put a link in the comments. Do take a look at that, because in that video we address how to have more energy with physical things like how to get more sleep, how to rest better, and some dietary things to take a look at and make sure you're getting enough healthy food. But in today's video, we're going to talk about the more kind of mental, emotional drains that can be happening at your energetic level, and how sometimes those things can go unnoticed for a really long time and cause you to feel really fatigued and really exhausted. Let's start with the premise that you and I are more than just skin and bones and blood and lymph and hair and teeth, right? We are more than just a physical body. And the best quote I've ever heard about this is from C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis says that we think we have a soul. And what we are is a soul, and what we have is a body. And so if you just let that sink in for a second and really think about yourself as an energetic spiritual being, the whole of who we are as beings is much more than just what we can see, smell, taste, and touch. And from that premise, what's happening is at any given moment, and especially any time that you're feeling drained or feeling fatigued, that what's happening is there is a state of resistance. And we are all always at the subject of what's called the gunas in Ayurveda. And these are just really quickly the forces of nature. And there's this interplay between the forces of nature, between rajas, which is more the force of activity, and tamas, which is more the force of lethargy and inertia and stillness, and then sattva, which is the force of harmony and ease. And these forces are at play all the time in nature. And because we are part of nature, we're susceptible to their influence. Well, what does this have to do with having more energy? So at any given time, your higher self, the aspect of your being that you cannot see, your energetic spiritual soul self, is vibrating at a very high frequency. And it is the frequency of freedom and ease and harmony and joy and light and love and vitality and boundless vibrancy and creativity and all those wonderful sounding things. And the reason we don't experience that more is because in the physical body and in this physical world, we're subject to the pull of the gunas. And we start to feel kind of pulled, and we start to believe that what's happening is real and is true. And we don't like it. And so we start to hold ourselves in a state of resistance. And what's really needing to happen in those moments where you're feeling fatigued is that your higher energetic frequency self is trying to get your attention. It's going, hey, the reason you're not feeling well is because you are out of alignment. And in yoga, we talk a lot about alignment. If you go to a yoga class, you're going to hear that word. And what we mean from that perspective is, of course, a physical alignment, like where are your feet? Are you sustaining neutral pelvis? Are you able to draw in and up from low belly? Are your shoulder blades drawing down your back, long spine, that sort of thing? And so there's this physical component to alignment. But what I'm talking about here is a different kind of alignment, and it is the alignment or the congruity between your higher self and this space where you insist on staying, right? Where we insist on hanging out. So with all that in mind, what do you do, right? What do you do when you find yourself feeling fatigued? And the first thing that we have to do is very brave work, and it just really simply has to do with we need to stop. And when I say stop long enough to allow whatever is going on with you to go on with you. Whether it feels like fatigue, it feels like sadness, it feels like loneliness, it feels like maybe a little hopelessness or despair, or all the things that we experience on a day-to-day basis that maybe we don't like. They're more like the darker, what we would consider like bad emotions. And when you start to feel yourself in a place of that, what we tend to do is we don't like it, so we try to fix it. So for example, if you're feeling really exhausted, you might be like, I can't be exhausted. I don't like this feeling. Let me have a cup of coffee. Let me reach for the sugar. Let me find some dark chocolate, whatever it is to like up your fatigue or get rid of your fatigue. or maybe you're feeling kind of sad or kind of lonely, and it's like we don't really like that feeling, and so we try to get really busy doing something else, like scrolling through social media, or busying ourselves with friends, or busying ourselves with the kids' activities. Ooh, this is a good one, because we start to feel very noble with the kids' activities. And there's a necessary component, of course, to taking care of your kids, but as moms, sometimes we use that as a distraction from just having those times to sit and feel what we feel and experience whatever's going on. And the reason it's so important to stop and experience what's going on with yourself is because until you're aware of it, you can't ever really begin to heal it. And when we talk about healing, I'm talking less about like taking the pill to feel better, drinking the coffee to feel better, and not approaching our health and our wellness as like this whack-a-mole approach. I was with my son at Chuck E. Cheese recently, and they have those whack-a-mole things, and you get the big hammer, it's like a foam hammer, and the little things pop up, and you smack them down. Well, we approach our health that way, and a lot of times we approach our own wellness in that way. It's like if we're feeling tired, have the coffee. Feeling sad, take the pill. Feeling bored, watch the show. Feeling whatever, and we just sort of like keep smashing it down. And that's one of the reasons we feel so drained and we're feeling tired, is because when you feel that incongruity, it comes up in a discomfort of some way. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're sad, maybe you're angry. It's calling, your higher self is calling for you to pay attention. It says, hey, something is needed in this moment. And so if you'll be brave enough just to stop and allow yourself to experience whatever it is, that is the first step toward healing it. Okay, so after you've stopped and after you've asked, okay, this is going on with me. I'm brave enough to stop distracting myself and stop saying busy and stop, all the ways to avoid feeling the thing I feel. And you're there in it, and you're in the emotion of it, and maybe you're crying, or maybe you don't like it, or maybe you get really antsy or sort of ticked off, and it's like coming up. So what do you do then? Well, what you do then is you notice where you want it to be different. And when you want it to be different, that is a state of resistance. You see, the way that it shifts and the way it begins to transform is that you must be willing to allow it to be whatever it is. And generally, once you kind of step into it and let it wash over you, it won't last forever. Have you ever been like, in a confrontation with your toddler or something, and they're having maybe a tantrum or experiencing a strong emotion, because, toddlers are so great with their emotions like right out there in full technicolor for everyone to experience with them. And when they're in that, and you go and you like maybe try to reason with them, or fix it, or solve it in some way, or make it different, or make them stop, or whatever it is, does that ever really work? Not usually. Like generally, like you can maybe do some things to redirect, and there are all those great parenting things you can try, the tricks that we try, especially if you're in a grocery store or something, to redirect the emotion. But in general, it kind of has to run its course, right? And then it doesn't last forever. It's kind of gone as soon as it was there. And the same thing is true for you. So if you're feeling that discomfort, allow yourself to feel it. And then by taking a lot of your attention to it, you ask then, what is there for me to do? What is there for me to know? And you become in this place of like asking, questioning. And in that place of asking and questioning, you right away and allowing, you're right away raising your frequency. And you're starting to bridge the gap between your higher self and the space that you hold yourself in opposition to. And you become more receptive. You become a little more neutral. You become a little more general. And the intensity, or like the gripping of it, starts to be a little more diffused. And you feel the shift, right? You start to feel a little bit different. And if you don't, it's because you're trying too hard. And it really is like this great paradox of like, we want it to be different, and so it's not, right? And so you have to just kind of get good and practice with this allowing. What needs to happen once you're in that space of allowing and allowing yourself to feel what you feel, experience what you experience, and not distract yourself, not fill every moment of the day with some activity or some kind of something, because we're so terrified to sit alone with our own emotion. Once you've bridged that gap, if you're there, by the way, congratulations. It's a very small percentage of the population that's willing to do this work. And once you're there, then the question becomes, well, what is needed? Do I need to adjust my circumstances Is there some sort of physical change that's needed in my circumstances? Or does the adjustment need to come from inside me? Does there need to be a shift in how I'm choosing to look at it, or how I'm choosing to respond, or how I'm choosing to react to it? And so those really are your two choices. By the way, this is a process known as vichara, and it comes from the Yoga Sutra. And this is a very quick sort of like crash course tutorial in the steps of it, but it really is worth spending some time on. And if you're interested in that, please do comment in the comments, and I'm gonna give you some good resources on how to really dive into the work. It's very worthwhile. You gotta be brave. It's not for sissies. It definitely is some deep work, but this is just kind of on a real quick level, and to give you some awareness around what happens with it when you start to work with this. And then finally, okay, you've asked that question, maybe you don't get an answer right away. And generally you don't. Like generally there's not like this, beam from heaven that opens up and is like, you should do this. I wish it was that easy. Typically it's just, you're not quite sure yet. But the more that you do this process, the more that you stop, allow yourself to feel, ask the question what is needed, and ask whether there's adjustment or contentment needed on your part. As you do this every day, several times throughout the day, eventually you become very skilled at managing that state of resistance that so many of us hold ourselves in all the time. So just to recap, I know this has been a lot. This is a deep subject, especially for a quick YouTube video, but I think it's important to give you some context and to give you some tools. And like I said, if you're interested more, please do reach out, and please do subscribe, because we're going to be talking more about this in the coming weeks, this vichara process. But just in general, make sure that you're taking the time to see yourself and consider yourself as an energetic being, and know that you are meant to be here in a space of joy and ease. And if you're experiencing anything other than that on a consistent basis, then likely this process is going to be something that you're going to want to work with. And so it really is just about stopping, taking the time to experience whatever it is going on for you, and then asking the question, what is needed? Do I need to adjust my attitude, or is it something outwardly that's needed to adjust? And the answer will come. And by taking the time to do this throughout the day and throughout the week, you will shift your energy.